a unicameral legislature will look like if we pass it. Either A, it'll be too weak to do anything, or B, we open ourselves up to, again, legislative tyranny. This seems to be a threat that you all underestimate so severely, and it deeply concerns me.
And I believe, as something we've all talked about, is holding people accountable, and I think that that is much stronger in a unicameral situation. And just so we can all take the moment to think about what might happen if we were two chambers, if this delegation right here is trying to create a constitution and we had two chambers, what it would do to our efficiency, what it would do to our ability to compromise, to come up with intelligent solutions. I think that unicameralism is really something we should consider.
If we're going to have a democracy that stays a democracy, that does not disintegrate into tyranny, we need a plural executive, or at the very least, as Franklin stated, a single executive with a council of advisors.
Here, here.
I don't understand why people think that, or as Mr. King said, that it is wise to have two chambers when one chamber might not be as knowledgeable as another chamber. Should we just not have a less knowledgeable chamber in the first place?
Legislative power is far stronger if it's divided into two chambers, and the executive is stronger if it's divided into one chamber. The legislative power, because by being two separate chambers, you have basically a lot more deliberation on laws. We can guarantee that these will be better laws than if they were passed by one legislature with no differing opinions, no different interests, no different factions, as Mr. Madison put it. And then with the executive, he's able to enact those laws, to execute those laws, and the duties of the executive branch, but he's checked by the fact that he's one person, so people can make sure that he is doing his job and not abusing his power. And these two branches will check each other, but that can only happen if we have a bicameral legislature.
I stand here to propose a middle ground, one that assures that the states remain in line with the crucial tenets of national policy, but make sure that they still have autonomy to make choices on a day-to-day basis. So what I'm proposing today is that there is a negative over state laws so that the national legislature may veto a law that a state passes that explicitly transgresses the Constitution, the document that we are here writing today, and ones that violate foreign treaties. So ones that explicitly go against a treaty that we have with, say, France or with England or with Holland. That the central government is there to make sure that the centrifugal system holds, that there is a trajectory around which we're all spinning such that each state can maintain its autonomy and its safety and its security. If we make it so that states can pass laws that transgress against national security or transgress against the collective security of the nation in general, I don't think that this is possible, and states themselves are at risk of being undercut by one another. We want to make sure that there's a legal, formal alternative that makes it clear to states that they have to remain within constitutional boundaries and within the boundaries of foreign law, so that we can maintain our relationships abroad, so that we can maintain internal stability, and so we can make sure that individual rights are not transgressed within the states, such that they are in line with our Constitution that we are here writing today. I thank you for your time.
First of all, that I believe the idea of a legislative negative on state laws is preposterous. It is problematic in many, many ways. First of all, I believe that it would cause, if not an outright rebellion, because of this massive violation of the states' rights, then it would certainly cause a great deal of civil unrest. I also believe that we should take into account what exactly this would mean. What do we want our legislature doing? Because if there was to be this negative on states' laws, all our legislature would be doing would be reviewing the laws of the states.
Gentlemen, we belong to the third class. Today we are laying down a government that our children and our children's children will live and work and breathe in. Do not forget that made of the small tasks that we each are working for individually is one great whole. Just as our nation is a great whole of many parts. Thank you.
Have been proposed. First, the ideas in the Virginia plan, which you may all read. Second, Mr. Pinckney's plan that the legislative should have the power to negative any law it deems improper. Mr. Hamilton's compromise that this power not be given to the legislature and instead be given to the governors of each individual state, or not to have the negative in the legislature at all, which I suppose also falls under Mr. Hamilton's plan.
We can reach a compromise where this is a shared power between the state and federal governments, so that the southern states, who may be adverse to export taxes for reasons that I do understand, they can work out an ability to have export tax rates that satisfy them.
I'm going to speak actually on both Navigation Acts and export taxes quickly, it's not too long. But I think that it's imperative that the national government be able to control both. The reason we have a union is because there is strength in numbers. If we think that only the states can represent their own interests, there's no reason to have a union to begin with. The states that have concerns about these acts and taxes will be represented in Congress to help make these decisions. If we allow each state to negotiate with the foreign countries and trade separately, the foreign traders will be encouraged to participate in a bidding war. As each state attempts to get a market for its goods, the prices will be pushed lower everywhere, as the different states will be forced to compete with each other for the best price.
That I believe the competition would be beneficial, would be overall generally beneficial. Mr. Mason seems to know a bit more about economics than I do, so if he would be able to offer any explanation for this, that would be wonderful. But so far as I understand it, it would be a positive thing if there were a little bit of competition between the states. People would shop around, it would be good for the economy. I really see no problem with this.
Right now, there's a huge block of states that don't want this to happen. Right now, it's not in the South's best interest. Therefore, presumably, many representatives of southern states will go to Congress and say, we don't want these taxed. In fact, perhaps enough so that it won't be taxed. But in 50 years, in 70 years, when economic interests are different, because they very well might be, they certainly are different now than they were 70 years ago, we don't want there to be a constitutional ban on accessing this right, on accessing this ability. We're not saying, this isn't an argument about how much to tax exports. We're not even saying we should do it right now. We are saying that the national government should have in its artillery of powers the power to tax exports the same as it has the power to tax imports. I think that insofar as we do both of these things, and they're both part of trade, and we think regulating trade is important, we need to have both things equally balanced so that in the future, when states' interests may very well change, we are able to duke it out in Congress again and talk about it later. But right now, don't take away that power.
Fine, I'll take away all the numbers on this, okay? But we need to put it down somewhere. We need to put it down somewhere so our rights are not floating around somewhere in the air to pick and choose as we see fit during the change of the time.
We are threatening not to ratify the Constitution. Perhaps to you, this just seems a document.